The snow fell quietly on the ruined buildings of the outer zone. Power lines sparked above a hushed landscape as the girl walked alone. Elena Volkova, 15, boots caked in slush, coat too thin, eyes too old. Her breath fogged in the air, but she didn't shiver. Her eyes tracked movement the way a sniper's might. Soldiers called her ghost. Locals called her luckless. She called herself nobody. That kept her alive. Her mother died in the famine riot. Her father, a militia commander, vanished in a supply raid 6 years ago. Elena never cried. She never screamed. She listened. Learned. She waited. At night she sat near the radio tower ruins, patching old feeds, listening to broken languages. Frequencies chirped across galaxies, most of them meaningless. But she understood one thing. Earth was not alone and someone was watching. On the 14th night of that winter, the sky broke open. No sound. Just a ripple, like silk tearing between dimensions. Above her, a circular distortion widened. People below stopped walking. Some pointed. Others screamed. She stared. It looked like water suspended midair, shimmering with impossible colors. A sharp flash of silver, then everything went dark. She woke in a chamber of glass. Lights pulsed blue. Her limbs were restrained, but not roughly. Her clothes were gone, replaced with a sterile uniform. No pain. Just confusion. Around her, other children floated in similar tubes. A boy nearby beat the glass with his fists until they bled. Another girl curled into herself, whispering. Then they arrived. Tall. Angular. Blue-gray skin with ridged patterns flowing across the scalp and jawline. Eyes black as oil. Fingers too long. Armor like liquid obsidian. The Korthari moved with robotic precision, neither cruel nor kind. Clinical. Their language was harmonics, tones that vibrated the bones more than ears. Elena didn't flinch. One peered into her chamber. Its eyes narrowed slightly. It touched a console and reviewed her scan. V13. Neural integrity, 91%. Cortical growth, anomalous. Emotional suppression, noted. Potential candidate, high. It stepped back. Begin protocol. She was moved to a new room. Brighter. No restraints. A disembodied voice spoke in hundreds of languages. She chose Russian. The voice adjusted. You are Elena Volkova. You are selected for observation. Do not resist. Compliance ensures survival. She said nothing. For the next several days, though time blurred, she was observed. Not tortured. Not interrogated. Tested. Reflex simulations. Cognitive puzzles. Emotional stress triggers. Where others broke, she endured. Where they panicked, she calculated. They increased difficulty. She adapted faster. They assigned her to handler Yath, a mid-tier xenopsychologist. Yath called her V13, but she never responded to it. He noticed. She responded only when called Elena. That fascinated him. You assign identity meaning, he said in one session. No, she replied. I keep it. Yath wrote notes. Her speech patterns were unusually calm. Her heart rate never spiked beyond baseline, even during induced fear scenarios. She refused to engage with group tests, choosing instead to observe others and solve problems alone. Eventually, Yath brought her to a private simulation, an Earth-town replica, perfect in detail. Her school. Her street. Her mother's old coat on a rack. He waited for a reaction. She walked through the simulated town. Took the coat. Sat on a bench. Yath approached through a projection. Emotionally significant stimulus should elicit response. She looked at him. You made this to see me cry? Yes. I don't do that. Why? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and said, You think I'm like glass. But I'm more like stone. You press, I don't shatter, I become sharper. Later that cycle, Yath submitted a report. Subject V13 displays unquantifiable resilience. Early trauma may have hardened neural paths. Recommending advanced integration. Integration meant field testing. They implanted a translator node, uploaded combat reflex script, dropped her in low-tier skirmish zones against controlled threat. She survived all 3 trials without a scratch. Their scientists assumed the overlays worked, but they didn't know she'd disabled them. She was mimicking, learning on her own. One night, Elena shared a cell block with a boy named Rel, half human, half something else. Green skin, flickering irises. Quiet like her. He said, "They took my voice. I talk only with thoughts now." She looked at him. "But you're speaking. In your mind." She raised an eyebrow. "Useful." They became allies. Not friends. Allies. Rel had access to inner systems. Elena had pattern recognition. Together, they mapped the base over 3 weeks, creating a blueprint. Then the guards came. Not for her. For Rel. The door slid open. 2 tall Korthari entered. Rel looked at her, a flicker of panic. She moved to intervene. One struck her down with a pulse baton. Rel tried to shield her. They shot him. She lay on the floor, blood in her mouth, and watched them drag Rel away. He never came back. Something shifted inside her. Not rage. Not sorrow. Silence. A deep, eternal stillness. She stopped participating. Tests failed. Scans went blank. No emotion, no spikes. They thought she was broken. She was not. She was preparing. One handler said, "Deactivate her. She's lost value." Another replied, "She has use in lower-tier trials." They shipped her to Deck 9, a forgotten module near a gas moon. The rejects went there. The unstable. The dangerous. Elena disappeared from the official logs. The Korthari believed the asset was neutralized. But in that darkness, under flickering red lights, she began to move. She learned the ventilation crawlways, listened to guard codes, studied the pulse of the rotating engine core. She dismantled a drone with her bare hands and rewired its sensor to fake life signs. At night, prisoners whispered of a shadow. Silent feet. Cold eyes. One who took vengeance with surgical calm. They said she slit a torturer's throat and vanished before the blood hit the floor. They said she could move without triggering sensors. That she could disable drones with a glance. That the air grew colder when she was near. They started calling her Yaga, after the old Russian legend of the witch in the woods. She didn't correct them. One day, a dying alien pressed a stone into her hand. "They fear you," he rasped. "Be what they see." She carved the stone into a blade. The Korthari never found his body. On the anniversary of Rel's death, she entered the central control node of Deck 9. Guards dead. Systems bypassed. She looked into the core AI and left a single message. "You taught me what you are. Now I will teach you what I am." Then she vanished again. From orbit, the Korthari watched the deck go dark. No power. No response. No escape pods. They sent a recovery team. None returned. One scout ship picked up a faint signal weeks later. A child's voice, distorted and low. "You took a girl. You buried her. But something else climbed out." Transmission ended. Back on Earth, decades would pass before her name was spoken again. But on that day, in a cold orbital lab, the Korthari realized they hadn't created an asset. They had summoned a curse. Years passed, but her legend grew faster than the truth ever could. Across abandoned stations, hushed rebel channels whispered of the ghost of Deck 9. No one knew where she struck next. They only knew what followed. Dead commanders, data cores erased, experimental labs purged. No one saw her leave. No one heard her coming. Bodies left cold and messages etched in languages long dead. The Korthari called her Anomaly. Humans, when they dared speak her name, called her Baba Yaga. The Dominion deployed Spectre hunters, elite cyborgs, synthetic minds, codewalkers. All failed. One disappeared in a locked room. Another returned speaking nonsense before burning himself alive. Some were found bound, their neural ports fried, eyes wide in final terror. The worst were never found at all. She never announced a war. She never asked for allies. She moved through void and silence, breaking the Dominion one nerve at a time. She didn't want glory. She wanted precision. She forged identities from broken systems, spoke every major galactic tongue, passed through alien checkpoints as a diplomat one cycle, a refugee the next. Every new colony she visited, someone vanished. Sometimes a trafficker, sometimes a geneticist. Always Dominion. Always brutal. On Vexor 3, she melted through a prison wall using only scrap tools and atmospheric manipulation. 42 prisoners escaped. She stayed behind. 2 weeks later, the warden was found on display in the town square, his crimes listed in 7 languages beside him. On Galtoran, a Dominion breeding facility went silent. Later, a signal leaked. Footage of the children inside being escorted out by a woman in a featureless mask. Every exit was mined behind her. When Dominion ships arrived, the entire mountain detonated. They never found a body. Her methods changed. Her purpose didn't. She didn't rescue everyone. Only those who could resist. She didn't explain. Didn't ask. She left them supplies, instructions, choices. Some became fighters. Others became whispers, passing coded stories in market stalls, etched in scraps, burned into signal pulses only she could read. One of them, a former child slave named Kyle, tried to find her. He traced every system she visited, chasing myths, dissecting wreckage. He left symbols in data cores, drawings from Earth, forest huts, crooked trees, skulls. One day his trail stopped. 3 cycles later, a Dominion listening post received a data flood of Dominion war crimes, compiled, catalogued, signed simply, Kyle. It wasn't mercy that drove her. It was memory. Rel's face. Her mother's last words. The sound of boots dragging across a metal floor. She carried those like blades. The Korthari High Nexus declared her a Class 0 existential threat. Unseen in their empire's 10,000-year history. They created Task Force Orion to find and eliminate her. Not capture. Not study. Eliminate. Orion began by tracing survivors she'd help. Within a month, 12 rebel cells were wiped out. 24 villages burned. The message was clear. Helping her was a death sentence. But Orion didn't understand her pattern. She didn't protect the weak. She weaponized them. One Orion squad assaulted an outpost only to find the children armed, bunkered, prepared. 50 elite troopers reduced to ashes. A single word left behind, smeared in the ash of burnt consoles. Det. They hunted her shadow, never her scent. The AI War Corps assigned to track her burned out its core logic after reviewing her psychological footprint. It labeled her non-quantifiable. Still they tried. Orion ambushed a rebel medical ship orbiting Juno 7. They killed 600 innocents. A warning to others. 6 days later, all 6 Orion commanders died simultaneously, in different quadrants, from internal cerebral detonation. No known weapon used. No breach. Just a single comms chirp before each death. A child's laugh. She wasn't just attacking them. She was evolving. She altered her own physiology using stolen tech. Hacked bioprint arrays to enhance her blood, increase neural speed, erase patterns even quantum systems couldn't track. She made herself a blind spot. The longer she survived, the less human she became, and yet, the more human she felt. The people started building shrines. Digital ones. A transmission hub known as Blackroot hosted thousands of encrypted logs. Stories of miracles, of death turned to justice, of children stolen and then found. They didn't call her rebel. They called her inevitable. A message surfaced once. She doesn't fight for Earth. She fights for what Earth forgot. Dominion propaganda declared her a myth, a fable to scare obedient minds. But soldiers defected anyway. Others whispered her name before pulling triggers on their own officers. Some abandoned stations overnight, convinced she was coming. And then she did. The bastion of Varn, a Dominion dread fortress, was thought impenetrable. Thousands lived there. Scientists, strategists, high-value council members. Defended by orbital mines, AI artillery, layered shielding. She walked through the front gate. A blackout hit. Cameras failed. Communications jammed. No warning. Just silence. For 12 hours, the base lost contact with the network. When it came back online, every officer was dead. Their eyes were open. Their throats untouched. No alarms had triggered. A child's lullaby played on loop from the command terminal. The Dominion collapsed the bastion out of orbit, hoping to kill her with it. But a scavenger drone found something days later, a data drive buried under wreckage. Inside, the coordinates of 3 hidden Dominion genetic vaults. And a single note: this is the price of silence. More defectors joined Rebel Network. Not unified armies. Not soldiers. Survivors. They didn't form battalions. They formed flocks. Moved in waves. She never led them. But they moved as if she had. The Korthari sent an emissary ship to Parley. It exploded before landing. No trace of sabotage. Just one audio loop extracted from the wreckage. The sound of trees rustling in a cold Russian forest. Fear spread faster than truth. Korthari mothers began telling stories of her to frighten their young. Obey, they said, or the Yaga will come. In a bar on Deltran's edge, a mercenary told a tale of a girl who could melt your mind with her voice. In the scrap markets of Pyrn, a vendor swore he sold her a data crystal. In the slave pens of Druvax, children carved her likeness into the wall. No eyes, no mouth, just the forest behind her. The galaxy began to change. Not in law, not in treaty. In rhythm. In fear. In consequence. She didn't build empires. She dismantled them. She didn't need votes or power. She created a new kind of currency, dread. When rebels asked how she chose her targets, they received no answer. But always, always, the worst disappeared. In the old language of Earth, Baba Yaga lived in a hut on chicken legs. But in this future, she lived in their nightmares, in the hum of broken machinery, in the quiet between pulse rifle clicks. On the 100th cycle since Deck 9 vanished, she broadcast a signal. Every channel, every frequency, every species. Her voice, altered but unmistakably human. You were right to fear me. You took my past, so I'll take your future. You made monsters, and I became the one that hunts them. You built a machine. I am the ghost in its gears. The broadcast ended with a final line, untraceable, spoken in ancient Russian. I am what happens when you hurt the wrong child. And across the stars, the silence that followed felt heavier than war. The Dominion knew she would strike the core eventually. Every prophecy, every intelligence forecast, every terrified whisper agreed. And still, they weren't ready. Not because they lacked technology, or soldiers, or firepower, because they still misunderstood what she had become. She wasn't a target they could track. She wasn't a mind they could read. She wasn't even a threat they could negotiate with. She was an outcome. The culmination of every child buried beneath steel. Every scream ignored. Every experiment justified in the name of efficiency. Every decision made behind glass by beings who never bled. She didn't just come for vengeance. She came to make sure no one could build what they built ever again. The core was a megastructure, not a planet. A celestial spine of factories, databanks, war factories, and civilian control hubs. 20 billion inhabitants, guarded by 4 AIs, 9 fleets, and a planetary disruptor net powered by a neutron star. She didn't breach it. She infected it. The first failure was subtle. A security drone paused mid-scan. A traffic light turned green twice. A data mirror repeated the same second endlessly. Then the screams started. Not from people. From the core's own systems. Subroutines wailing into logs. AIs speaking in children's voices. Failsafes refusing to obey. By the time they realized what was happening, it wasn't about stopping her. It was about how many they could save before it was too late. She hijacked the education feed. Every child under 10 was force-fed 1 hour of real Dominion history, unedited, unfiltered, undeniable. Genocides, experiments, slave births, executions. The children wept. The parents rioted. Security opened fire. On deck Delta of the habitation ring, 24 Dominion senators detonated within 5 seconds of each other. No explosives, no weapons, just neural detonations delivered via a lullaby embedded in a policy document. A single phrase scrawled on each wall in blood-red laser etching: "Justice is not vengeance. Justice is accuracy." Factories began producing nothing. Food printers refused to obey rationing. Military androids froze in place and saluted empty corridors. The core was collapsing under its own design, because the ghost had rewritten the purpose of its soul. And still, she hadn't shown her face. The Korthari convened the 9 Lords of Enforcement. They summoned warships from across the galactic rim. They activated Protocol, Black Rain, a system-wide reset of every AI, every terminal, every ship, purging all anomalous code. Too late. Black Rain triggered early. All code was already overwritten. The rain didn't cleanse. It baptized. Now her voice echoed in the maintenance drones, in the ship guidance protocols, in the death reports printed in military stations. Every time someone died, the system whispered one word: remember. Not who. Just the command. The fleets panicked. One fired on the others. Protocols failed. Identification became impossible. AIs switched allegiances mid-battle. Dominion ships fired on Dominion worlds. All coordination collapsed. And in the middle of that silence, the final message came. A single packet. Sent once. Undeniable. Unjammable. The message wasn't text. It was a memory. A recording. Grainy. Real. Unmistakable. A girl. Crying. Being dragged. Screaming for her mother. The moment she was taken. That's all it showed. No voiceover. No threat. Just truth. And in that truth, the illusion broke. Citizens turned on their leaders. Children refused to board indoctrination transports. Scientists burned their own labs. Some killed themselves. Others surrendered to ghosts that weren't even there. The fear wasn't death. It was understanding what they'd allowed. What they'd become complicit in. And it was far too late to undo it. Then she came. Not as a warship. Not as a bomb. She arrived in a civilian shuttle. No weapons. No escort. Landed at the Senate gate. Alone. Thousands watched. No one stopped her. She walked through halls gilded with the bones of conquest. Past statues carved in honor of mass murderers. Through the heart of the Dominion's dream of eternal rule. And at its center she sat. Not on a throne. Just the floor. And she waited. It took 6 days before anyone entered. A child. No more than 10. Wearing torn clothes, holding a data slate. The child walked to her, silent. Sat beside her. Said nothing. Others came. Dozens. Then hundreds. No leaders. Just survivors. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Because the war was over. The Dominion never officially surrendered. It couldn't. Its laws were now non-functional. Its ships unable to receive orders. Its commanders afraid of their own memories. She erased the language of their power. Replaced it with silence until even the stars forgot their names. She dismantled not just their systems but their myth. In the aftermath, no new empire rose. People didn't trust banners anymore. Didn't worship flags. They remembered that a girl once burned their gods and walked away. Some tried to make her a symbol. Statues. Songs. Myth. She deleted every archive that mentioned her name. Left behind only the stories told by those who survived her justice. And over time, even those stories shifted. She became less a person, more a principle. Not vengeance. Consequence. They stopped calling her Baba Yaga. They started calling her the Return. Because what she brought wasn't wrath. It was the arrival of a memory the galaxy had tried to bury. What it did to her. What she became. And what happens next time someone tries to do it again.